life vest lies? What? The life vest / cushion that the hubby, Lynette Hooker's husband, says he threw to her has been found floating. But no Lynette. This as her husband walks free. Yes, Lynette Hooker's husband has walked free and says he doesn't want to go into the details of her disappearance. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us. She bounced off the dinghy. How does a person bounce? Okay, and then the darn moon. The moon wasn't up yet, so he couldn't see.
Every one of those coincidences, as you call them, are explainable and do not mean beyond a reasonable doubt he was guilty.
Ryan, what do you want to tell people who think you're responsible for your wife's disappearance?
Any response about the conditions?
Brian, just any message you want to send about finding your wife. Brian, just any message about finding your wife. Any message about finding your wife.
Excuse me. Thank you so much.
Do you know where you're going to go now?
I'm not sure yet. All right.
Did he ask about Lynette?
He just literally walked out, so he hasn't had any time. But throughout the time that he was here, he was asking about her.
I take that as a no. That's for our friends Fox News and NBC. Straight out to special guest joining us, Vanessa Walsh from Unmasked True Crime. So his defense lawyer, he's free. He's walked free. Apparently there's nothing to hold him in the Bahamas. It's one of those no body, no cases scenarios. The lawyer is asked, did he ask about his wife? Her response, he literally just walked out. He hasn't had time to say, where's Lynette? How much time does that take, Vanessa?
Yeah, I thought a lot of the interviews were odd yesterday, all the way from the smirking, leaving the hotel, to the interviews that I listened to where when they ask if there's anything he can share about Lynette, he immediately says no, he doesn't want to interfere with the searches, which I would think would be the opposite of that. And that anything that he could share about her disappearance or about any specifics of the night would be incredibly helpful for the searches.
Joining us now, special guest Ben Dobrin, boat captain with a 50-ton master's license, emergency response diving instructor, instructor trainer, police diver, emergency services diver. But for our purposes, the fact that he is a boat captain with a 50-ton master's license makes him more than qualified to comment on this case. Ben, thank you for being with us. Listen to this, Ben Dobrin.
And the waves were doing their thing, and I saw her, I think, twice. I threw her a flotation cushion that we used to sit on the dinghy, right after she went in. But I couldn't tell if she got it or not. We've been looking for the cushion too, the search and rescue teams. How small a person is in 2 to 3 floaters and 25 knot winds. And so after an hour of calling her, I never heard her voice. And a powerboat came by, and I waved my flashlight on my phone, and they were so fast that they didn't even see it. And then another one came by right behind it, sort of 5 minutes behind it, and I grabbed the flares by then. I had 2 flares, and they didn't see the flares, I guess. And then I didn't know what to do. By the time I got the anchor set, I was probably a quarter to a half a mile away from her.
That is the husband of Lynette Hooker speaking to a friend on the phone, describing in depth what happened the night his wife bounces off the dinghy and goes overboard. Ben, he has walked free. He has walked free down there in the Bahamas. And Vanessa Walsh, very quickly, was it the flotation cushion or her life vest that has just been found floating out in the ocean?
I believe it's the flotation cushion that was found, not her life vest.
I do too. So, Ben Dobrin, what does this mean to you? You said he should have thrown her. You said a life ring or a cushion. He says he threw a flotation cushion. Boy, he sure had a run of bad luck, didn't he? He gets in the dinghy, and then suddenly this bizarre wind blows up. And of course, I'm not a boat captain, but it sounds to me like that was winds at about 29 miles an hour. And that's between two little islands. I'm very curious how that happens. Then the oar goes overboard after a pin broke. She didn't have on a life vest. The kill switch, the kill key went with her. Just everything's going wrong. Does this make sense? Does this sound true, Ben Dobrin?
It sounds like a perfect storm of failures. The fact that he threw the seat cushion, that's the right thing. That's the first right thing that I've heard from this entire incident. But this time he said 25 knots. Earlier it was 20 knots. 25 knots, like you said, is 29 miles an hour. You do not want to be in an 8-foot inflatable dinghy in 29 mile an hour winds. That is not safe. That is in no way, shape, or form safe. And especially as the sun was setting, that's a horrible decision that any seasoned boat operator would just say, no, it's too dangerous. We can't get back to our sailboat tonight. You're putting yourself at risk. I mean, obviously you're putting yourself at risk in 29 mile an hour winds in an 8-foot inflatable dinghy. That sounds horrible. And then he said he tried to put the oars in and one of the pins broke. Okay, I believe that, but that's just another thing in that list of failures. But you know what happens if you have 2 oars and you lose one? Now you have a paddle. You can use that one oar as a paddle and still paddle to wherever you want to go. And obviously he did. He ended up on shore. So at some point he figured out he could paddle to shore. But unless that wind was blowing him directly to shore, he's not paddling against the 29 mile an hour wind to get to shore. Just not doing it. You cannot paddle 29 miles an hour. So if he drifted to shore, that's one thing, but she would have drifted in the same exact direction. So she would have ended up on shore if the wind was pushing
That's a
him
really
to
good
shore,
point. She would have
her.
drifted in same direction, not a different direction than where he was going if the wind story is true. What about the flares, Ben Dobrin? Because Vanessa Walsh from Unmasked True Crime has told us that sources state there in the Bahamas, all of his safety equipment was still on the dinghy, that no flares were missing. I don't know how they know that, but that's what they're saying. He says he put off 2 flares and the boats going by did not see them.
It's very easy to see if to check because your flares come in a waterproof box. And so the flares aren't just rolling around on the floor. So if they open up the box and if there's a slot for 5 flares, if there's 5 flares still there, the flares are still there. So if he discharged flares, there would be flares missing. Flares are difficult to see. People think that they light up bright and for a long time. They're not that bright and they don't last for a very long time, especially handheld, like you see the pistols. If there's boating around, and he said one powerboat went by and he tried to use his flashlight on his phone, that's not a very bright light anyway. But if there was powerboats around and a flare in those sorts of situations, like he was leaving a restaurant and going back to him, there was boats around, they would have seen a flare. But the fact that somebody has said they checked the safety equipment and all the flares were accounted for, that doesn't sound like he shot a flare if all the flares were accounted for.
Listen to this.
At that point, I was slightly closer to something which has a few houses on it, and I decided I had to go get help. But I could not get to the island with one paddle, and the tide carried me right the first house and then the second house. And so I ended up drifting and paddling for many hours until I landed on Marsh Island about 4 miles away. The dinghy key was not attached to me, so when we were around trying to get back in the boat, the sun was falling when it kind of dropped off. It was a magnet key, for the electric motor. And it was a cascade of failures, and it's something I'm never going to forgive myself for. And then, so this happened like Saturday night, during all day at the place called Tahiti Beach. And they would have a beach bar that pulls up on a barge. And we hit the next stop and we stayed too long. We left too dark. All kinds of shit. No life jackets. I had the two that you stuff, under the seats that nobody ever wears for, Coast Guard purposes. But we used to wear these life jackets these other ones all the time. I can't explain what happened to us, I threw the dinghy out last, or the anchor out last instead of first, because the dinghy was all tangled up in the bottom. It was underneath another cushion, and I was just trying to get to her, and I was going to row. But it is ridiculous to think you can row a dinghy, especially a fiberglass dinghy, against the wind in 2 foot or 3 foot swells. I can't really explain it. I just know that I hate this boat, and if she doesn't come back, I'm never getting on this boat. I'm going to sell this go here. Every single thing that's good on it came from her. Every cute idea and awesome idea. I just picked, but she really creates. And we still didn't wear our life jackets, and we could have got run over, in the dark by some of these Bahamian drivers were crazy, and they wouldn't see his stupid headlamp instead of a dinghy light. And we just kind of take all these little things for.
Guys, our friends at Unmasked True Crime, that is Lynette Hooker's husband speaking. So that's what I've got of him on the phone. Dobrin, what do you make of that last bit of sound of him on the phone?
He's saying all the right things at this point. He realizes, it was cascade of failures. It was an absolute cascade of failures. But the idea, he's in a 2 to 3 foot swell and a chop, that's wind driven. That's not ocean swells. That's wind driven. Everything would have been pushed in the same direction. And so, yes, he could not paddle against that 29 mile an hour winds. He could not paddle against 3 foot seas. He shouldn't have been out there.
But
they should
Ben,
not have
I
been
don't
out there
get
in 3
it.
foot seas.
If the wind, of course, as you said, is blowing them the same way, and he anchored, as he said he did, the boat would have been going, let's pretend, to the left in the wind. She would have been going to the left in the wind. She would have been going toward the dinghy. Doesn't that make sense to you?
Yes, if that's the way. If she fell off on one side, she'd be pushed. At first, originally, yes, initially she'd be pushed in the dinghy. But once she got past the dinghy, if it was anchored, they would be separating. If he was anchored and staying still, they would start separating. But he said the anchor was the last thing he threw out. So the anchor wasn't deployed for a while. He was going in the same direction that she was until the anchor was deployed. And he said that was the last thing he did was throw the anchor out. So they're going together. And he said the wind pushed him to a different island. It would have pushed her in the same direction unless she was really trying to go against it. They were going in the same direction. And with 2 to 3 foot chop, you're right. He would not have seen her as the sun was setting in a 2 to 3 foot chop. But the idea of being in a 2 to 3 foot chop and an 8 foot dinghy with a very tiny motor on it, not wearing your PFDs, the whole thing just sounds, you could not write a worse script. That's going to end in disaster almost every single time.
Ben Dobrin joining us, boat captain, 50-ton master's license, diving instructor, and more. Thank you for being with us. If you have been leaning on credit cards lately just to cover living basics like groceries, gasoline, utility bills, you're essentially paying a survival tax of 20% interest or more. American Financing is helping homeowners tap into their equity to pay off high-interest debt with mortgage rates currently in the 5s. On average, American Financing is saving their customers $800 a month. Not just $800, but $800 a month. There are no upfront fees to talk to a salary-based mortgage consultant. Why do I care about that? Because they don't get a percentage of sales. They're salary-based. Start today. You could even delay 2 mortgage payments. American Financing, America's home for home loans. 866-888-0344. That's 866-888-0344. Or simply go to americanfinancing.net/Nancy. And good luck. Also joining us on the case, Melissa Andrews, crime investigative anchor, WTOL. Thank you for being with us. As a matter of fact, has he been searching at all?
We've not seen that he has, Nancy. He has said that he believes that Lynette is still alive and that he's going to hire planes and boats to find her. He said money is, of course, an issue, but he hasn't said that he's not going to leave the Bahamas. We do believe from his attorney that he's not being prevented from leaving the Bahamas, but she believes he's going to stay there to try to find Lynette. He says he's never been apart from her for this long in their 25-year marriage. And he's willing to talk about the case.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Melissa Andrews joining us, crime investigative anchor, WTOL. He said he's never been apart from her for very long in their marriage.
And that's not exactly true, according to Lynette's mother, Darlene, that we talked to, and according to her daughter, Carly, who both told me that they did separate for a matter of months a couple of years ago and were able to reconcile. So that is false. You're correct, Nancy.
You know what, Melissa Andrews, you're right, WTOL. Joining us right now, neighbor Jordan Plintz, the neighbor in the U.S. of Lynette and Brian Hooker. That's absolutely not right. I've got him right here saying, I don't think I've ever been apart from her in 25 years. You know what? Let's hear it from the horse's mouth.
I don't think I've ever been apart from her in 25 years for this long.
Wait a minute. Where are the tears? That's a whole nother can of worms. That's from our friends at NBC. Not apart from her in 25 years. Melissa Andrews is right, Jordan Plintz. You have described, according to your mom, many times that Lynette left home and moved in with her because of alleged domestic violence.
So just briefly, like I said, when Darlene leaves and goes to Florida, I watch over the house, and she said that she was going to move in, that she was leaving Brian, and she stayed for probably 2 or 3 months, and then he came back for her one day, and then Darlene was like, she's going back. So, I mean, she's an adult. She can make that decision.
According to what your mom was told by her, why did she leave to start with, Jordan?
The domestic violence, the abuse, I think the isolation too. I mean, she gave up a good career. She sold her home. She sold her belongings. They literally have everything they own in Darlene's garage and a Buick that they drive. But other than that, like, they don't really have anything other than the sailboat.
For those of you just joining us, the husband, Brian Hooker, has been cut loose. He is free to leave the Bahamas and go wherever he wants, including jurisdictions such as Vietnam, where there is no extradition treaty. But I want to go back to what we just observed. Vanessa, Melissa, watch this.
It's been a long time. I don't think I've ever been apart from her in 25 years for this long.
From our friends at NBC, Vanessa, that's what you were describing earlier. Vanessa Walsh with us, the star of Unmasked True Crime podcast. He tried to cough, but there were no tears. You first pointed that out, and you're right.
Yeah, I watched that. I tried to even be fair. I went back, I watched it multiple times. I'm blowing up my screen and pausing it. But he does a lot of the performative things, like, the facial expressions and removing his glasses and wiping his eyes. But there are no tears.
I noticed also, Melissa Andrews, that he was asked point blank, what is your message? What is your message about finding your wife? And he says, thank you so much. What about Lynette? Where are you? I'm going to find you. Will everybody please help me find my wife? I didn't hear any of that.
Exactly. And Nancy, one of the things that stuck out to me was he said, I want to go talk to these volunteer firefighters and these volunteer searchers, almost as if he was going to seek them out to thank him. But to your point, we've not seen any video of him actively going out in a boat and searching the water. He says that he has heard that a missing person can be missing in the ocean for weeks or even months and still be found. I've not heard that, but we've not seen him looking through any marinas or on anybody else's boat or anything of that effect at all. It's more like, I want to go thank these volunteers.
I wonder if he actually did ever go thank them. Vanessa Walsh joining us. Vanessa, the timeline is very curious, very curious. He states his wife bounced off the dinghy. How many days passed before a search crew started looking? How many days did he have that he went without searching for her?
Well, this is what really stuck out to me, because he keeps repeating what he thinks are all the right things and saying that he wants to look for her and he can't stop looking for her. But when you look at the timeline, she went missing on the 4th. She was reported missing the morning of the 5th. He was not arrested until the 8th. And even if you give him that on the 8th he was being questioned, he still had a 3-day critical window to search for her. And the audio that was released between he and a friend was recorded on Monday, April 6th. So, and we've seen all these other conversations that he's had with other people and text messages. So to me, it seemed like he was much more interested in kind of getting his story out and building his narrative than he was actually going out and searching for Lynette.
So all this time he's calling his friends. I believe they were in St. Martin's, and these long-winded phone conversations that we have on recording, trying to explain what happened to Lynette, how it was all the fault of a series of unfortunate events. He was not out looking for her, bottom line.
It doesn't appear that way unless we learn anything new. He was mainly just calling everyone that he knew, trying to give all the details of what happened on his end.
Joining us now, veteran trial lawyer from the Tate Law Group, Mark Tate. Mark, why is he not out looking for his wife?
Well, I think he said he was going to, Nancy, and I believe that he said that he couldn't live without her. This is the longest he's ever been without her the entire time he's known her for 25 years. And I believe he is. He said that funds are limited, but he's going to try to rent planes and rent boats and look for
her. Mark, he has a boat. He's a boat captain. He's got a boat and a dinghy. When?
Yeah, but a dinghy,
he's
a little 8-foot dinghy.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Come on, man, he's got an 8-foot dinghy and he's got a sailboat moored in
yacht.
Elbow Key. It's not like he can use that. That's not a search and rescue boat. It's just not a search boat. It's a little sailboat. He's got an 8-foot dinghy.
Look at him. I'm looking at him right now.
It doesn't have the maneuverability. Say what? I'm sorry.
What are you saying?
No, you can't. A sailboat is not a search and rescue boat. It's just a sailboat. It doesn't have the maneuverability. It doesn't have the draw. It doesn't have the ability to be above the water line sufficiently to see things that are in the water. A search and rescue boat is not just something that you can go press any vessel into doing. That's why he wants to rent planes, so you can see more than just at the water line. So, I mean, I can't be critical of the poor guy who's not out there searching around in a sailboat looking for his wife, and the dinghy is clearly not seaworthy. So I think that to press him into saying he's not using his boat or his dinghy to look for his wife, I think that's a little unfair to him. Now, I understand that he sparked a lot of interest.
I'll tell you what's unfair. His wife going overboard and him refusing to give details. In fact, he says, I'm not going to go into the details too much. Why not? To you, Vanessa Walsh, isn't it true when asked, and here's his chance to beg the public to help him find his wife, he said, I don't want to go into the facts.
Yes, he immediately says no. When they say, is there anything you can tell us that will help us find Lynette? He immediately says no, and he doesn't want to interfere with the searches. That comment made no sense to me whatsoever. And I wanted to point out something that his friends also told me the other day that has really bothered them. The sailing community is very tight-knit, and they have apps and multiple ways to stay in communication with each other, to alert each other if there's an emergency or if they need help. And Brian would know about all of this as long as he's sailed with Lynette. Yet, according to his friends, Brian never used any of that or reached out to anyone to even ask for help since the time she went missing. So it really did beg the question, especially with their friends, of why didn't he use those things?
What was the last thing that you remember saying to each other?
Without going into a lot of details because of the ongoing investigation, I will always think there was something I could have done differently. My one job was to look out for her, and that has not happened. And I'm going to keep looking out for her now as best I can.
Maybe I'm wrong, but 2020 and 2019 just told me he's not out looking for her. He's giving one interview after the next. Melissa Andrews joining us, WTOL. Just like Vanessa Walsh said, he keeps talking about blah, 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 instead of doing something about finding his wife. And when he's asked what was the last thing that she said, I don't want to go into the investigation too much. What? Why not? For all I know, the last thing he said to her was, overboard, boom. How do I know that's not the last thing he said? And he is not crying. I don't know why he keeps quivering his voice like that and wiping his eyes. There's nothing there.
You're right, Nancy. I mean, that's the reason we have the saying, actions speak louder than words. You're pointing out, where is the action of him searching for his wife, organizing search parties, as Vanessa said, and as you said, getting together this big sailing community that they have. They've been sailing together for 12 years, so he hasn't been asking for help in those areas. And, we also don't, I don't think that it impedes an investigation to reveal what the last conversation you had with your wife who went overboard was. I just don't think that an investigator would have a problem revealing that information.
American homeowners, the FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud called title theft. Your equity, the target. With just a forged signature, your ownership can be transferred out of your name. And without protection in place, you're left with an emotional and financial nightmare. That is why we partner with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim and protect yourself. Use promo code Nancy at HomeTitleLock.com to get a free title history report. Free title history report, plus a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if you are a victim of fraud, they will spend up to $1 million to fix it. Please don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. You've been working your whole life and putting money into your home. Don't lose the equity. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code Nancy, or just use the link below, and good luck. Vanessa Walsh joining us. In addition to Melissa Andrews, Vanessa is the star of Unmasked True Crime Podcast. Vanessa, what more have you learned from the friends? Now, I know the flotation device was found. I know that was found. I think it may have been a cushion. It was found floating in the water, but no Lynette.
Right. And I guess that would be one of the pieces of the story that turned out to be accurate. But they've also learned that, well, it's been stated that her Apple Watch was also found. Now, her friends say that she always wore the Apple Watch, but it is possible that that day she decided not to wear it for whatever reason, or that it was charging. But that was also another interesting piece that has come out in recent days.
Yes, why was she without her watch? Sydney Silvani joining us, Crime Stories investigative reporter. Sydney, take a look at this new video we've gotten from our friends at Law and Crime. It looks to me like the Coast Guard or the Bahamian police are boarding his vessel.
Right. The Soulmate was searched. There was a warrant for electronic devices, including cell phones and laptops. So the boat was searched, and we were hoping maybe some blood, maybe some evidence Lynette was on the boat, to keep Brian Hooker behind bars, but as far as we know, nothing of that nature was found on the sailboat.
What do you mean, nothing of what nature was found on the sailboat?
Blood or an indication of violence between Lynette and Brian.
How do you know that?
We don't know if anything of that nature was found. I would hope if it was, Brian Hooker would still be behind bars.
Yeah, I would hope that too. Mark Tate, can we just get real? Take off your defense hat. I'll take off my prosecution hat. We know from other cases you and I have investigated and covered that involve, let's just say, our friends on the islands. I'm thinking of the Bahamas. I'm thinking of Natalie Holloway in Aruba and so many others, for example. And this is no knock. Their forensics teams have much to be desired. And I mean, that's true here in the States. A small town PD does not have the knowledge, the wherewithal. We're seeing it play out right now in Tucson in the Nancy Guthrie search. Once those mistakes are made, once that crime scene is destroyed, it's over. If there had been evidence, it's probably gone by now because so many people have been on and off the vessel. If there had been any evidence to start with, they don't know how to handle a sensitive crime scene. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
It's not their expertise. They don't have that many homicides. That's just the deal, Mark.
Well, from I don't disagree with you. From any lawyer standpoint, that we're dealing with something that's a very serious potential charge, we really do want both the prosecution and any defense lawyer wants a very well preserved, thoroughly investigated scene, because a thoroughly investigated scene may very well have as much information that would exonerate the accused as it would to implicate the accused. And we see that many times. Overlooked, untested, improperly gathered evidence can favor one side or the other. If it's improperly collected and a defendant can show it's improperly collected, then that can cause there to be reasonable doubt in a jury. However, if an investigation is pristine, then we know that when someone's convicted, so long as the evidence is properly presented, that's going to be a good conviction.
They have an AIS tracking system of the boat, and apparently he was on the boat while he was paddling to shore. So there's history of him choking her out and threatening to throw her overboard. So the fact that this is actually happening makes me believe there's more to the story. I've seen him choke out one of his daughters before, and we had to go to court for that. And I was only in third grade. So he's just repeating patterns.
That is Lynette's daughter, Carly Ellsworth, speaking out about alleged prior incidents of domestic violence. Jordan Plint's joining us, Lynette and Brian Hooker's neighbor back in the States. According to Lynette's daughter, she observed domestic violence all the way back to when she was in the third grade. Are you surprised?
No, because it's something that they always continue to do. It's not like a learned behavior. It's a pattern, like she said, and it's sad that she probably only remembered from third grade on to adulthood. It probably was happening going past before that.
To Vanessa Walsh joining us. He is absolutely free to leave the Bahamas whenever he wishes. I want you to hear what the Royal Bahamian Police Commissioner had to say.
If he leaves the country and we need to see him again, we do know that our U.S. counterparts will assist us with that. So we will not hamper in any way him leaving the country.
Vanessa, what's to stop him from going to a jurisdiction where we don't have an extradition treaty? There are many of them.
Well, I do think, optics wise, it's going to look really bad if he leaves the Bahamas and you've got, local searches going on and police searches going on and U.S. Coast Guard searches going on. I would be surprised if his attorney wouldn't, I'm not an attorney, but I'd be surprised if she didn't tell him to stick it out. However, it is important to note that there are questions about whether he can leave right away, because if you'll recall in that audio, he does say that both he and Lynette's passports were in the dry bag that was attached to Lynette that went overboard with her. So I'm not sure if that was true when he said that on the audio, but logistically anyway, his leaving may not be that simple right away.
You just heard from Lynette's daughter, Carly, with bombshell claims that domestic abuse had been going on since at least the 3rd grade, and she looks to be up in her 20s. Well, hearing that, this is what Hooker's lawyer had to say.
He does not want to dwell on negativity. He has been reluctant to respond to the claims made by his stepdaughter. She has a medical history that needs to be looked in. She's on certain medication. She can be easily influenced, and that may be affecting what she's saying as well as her grief at this time.
So all the women are crazy, according to Hooker and his lawyer. That's from our friends at Fox News. So that would mean, Melissa Andrews, that Jordan can't believe her 2 lying eyes, that all the furniture and everything is in her mother's garage, that she, Lynette, has left on several occasions, moved out because of domestic violence. So I guess she's lying, Jordan Plintz is lying, her mother is lying. That would mean that Lynette had been lying, and now the daughter is lying. They're all lying. They're even saying that the daughter has a, quote, mental illness. She didn't look mentally ill to me. Of course, I'm not a PhD. I'm not a medical doctor, but she seemed to know what she was talking about. They're all lying. All the women are lying. And he's the only one telling the truth. Am I hearing that, Melissa?
You are, and I did talk to Darlene, and I asked her after Brian's arrest, what did she think about this? And she said that she thought the investigators were spot on. Also, don't forget, we found court records from 2006 that showed that Brian was acquitted of child abuse. So that timeline lines up with those choking allegations of his biological daughter. Again, he was acquitted. We also found a police report involving Lynette and Brian in Kentwood, Michigan in 2015, in which Lynette was detained for battery. And those charges were never filed because the police said that they couldn't determine who started that alleged assault.
So he called police on her, but when police got there, they did not execute an arrest warrant because obviously they did not believe his story. Vanessa Walsh, star of Unmasked True Crime. Vanessa, what more, if anything, have you learned?
Well, when I spoke to his friends yesterday, they were very happy that the U.S. Coast Guard has now opened their own investigation. They felt they had a lot of confidence in them. But they did have some big questions. And the biggest one being, if everything actually occurred as Brian said, then why haven't they found Lynette yet? Because we know it was really shallow water. And apparently some of his friends had talked to the locals there. And they said that unfortunately they do have a lot of drownings there. But what they don't have are missing bodies. So it just really still doesn't add up to them. But at the end of the day, their main focus is just finding Lynette.
Hi guys, Nancy Grace here. Please join us on Crime Stories and stream it first on Fox 1. When breaking crime news develops, we investigate it and bring it to you. Bombshell updates, answers to unanswered questions from cases making the headlines and cases you may never have heard of until Crime Stories. We go inside investigations with exclusive interviews, crime victims, families seeking justice, investigators, experts, and sources from within the case itself. Stay on top of the nation's biggest trials with us, including gavel-to-gavel coverage with real-time analysis. Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. Stream it first on Fox 1. I hope to see you there, and thank you, friend. Lynette Hooker, still missing at sea. Her husband miraculously survived, and he remains innocent of any and all charges until proven guilty in a court of law. If you know or think you know anything regarding Lynette's disappearance, please dial 242-300-8477. Tonight we have confirmed the couple did go to the Abaco Inn restaurant. We have reports that Lynette left her Apple Watch on the boat. And we know the flotation device was found, but no Lynette. We remember American hero Deputy Mark Anderson, Olmsted County Sheriff's, Minnesota, passed away in the line of duty and leaving behind a grieving brother, Eric, and a daughter sentenced to life without dad. American hero Deputy Mark Anderson. Thanks to our guests, but especially to you for being with us tonight. Nancy Grace signing off for tonight, but I'll see you tomorrow night. And until then, good night, friend. Hi, guys. Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. And if you're on the go, please join us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all our content, where we, in our way, seek justice.